Hello world, Stephen Michael Zach here, and today we are pitting the Aputure 60D versus the Godox S60. Now, why nobody's ever done this review, I have no idea. However, I just want to let everybody know that I bought these with my own money. Nobody's paying me to say nothing, so these are my own brutal and honest opinions as always. So let's just jump right into it. Now, first off, let's take a look at the Aputure 60D. Now, of course, you get one of their signature cases. These things are absolutely fantastic, but inside you are going to get a lot packed into this. You are going to get the, of course, shoulder strap right here. You're going to get the unit itself, which is very interesting. You are going to get a lead cord with their power cord with, of course, their signature little clippy clip here, little locking mechanism here, which I love. You are going to get an NPF V-mount attachment. Now, we'll talk about this later. You are going to get the barn doors. You're going to get the power pack, and the cool thing about this is the power pack, you can remove it from this little cradle, but I would leave it in here. And it is, again, V-mount attachable. And then you have a Bowens mount attachment for all your smaller soft boxes or your dishes. Very, very, very cool. And one other thing you get is a D-tap cable. Now let's take a look at the Godox inside the box. Inside the Godox box, you get a pair of barn doors, a lovely control box here. You get the light itself, which is very sleek and very nice. And then you get this little box right here, which has your lead cord from the head to the power box. You get your Nutrix connector cord to your power, and to mains power, and you get your little socket wrench here. Okay, so being hilarious, we are lighting this with the S60 at 1% power. So this basically goes from 100 down to nothing. And you get your battery indicator there. This is plugged in. You get your curve and you get your CCT. And of course you get your spot flood knob, your on-off button, your menu, and your OK. Now this is where it starts to get confusing. If it's dark, I never seem to know which button to press. Now you can press in the button and you have your CCT here. You have your special effects mode. You could change your dimming curve, your Bluetooth reset, your studio mode. Now basically what the studio mode does, if you don't know, is that the studio mode will, and let's go ahead. The studio mode will basically, if you say yes, when you flip on a light switch and this is plugged into that light switch, it'll go on automatically, so you don't need a hard switch, or you could turn it off so it won't go on when you plug it in. Moving down, you get your serial number, your firmware version, and you get your language, do not touch that, and an exit. So let's go into effects mode here, and let's go all the way to the top here. And of course, again, this is a warning for all those people who are affected by lights. So here's what I find absolutely confusing. When you click OK and you go into a special effect, you click the menu button. Now the menu button should navigate you up and down, but it doesn't. The OK button navigates you up and down, so it is very, very confusing. So you do get paparazzi, fireworks, a faulty bulb, and again, if you hold it, if you press it quickly, it stops. If you press it again, it goes. Not really sure why that happens. And again, this should control it, not this. You get lightning, you get TV, pulsing, strobe, and explosion. With explosion here, the explosion can actually be triggered by pressing the OK button, or if you hold it, that's it. So it can only be triggered. So again, very, 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 very bizarre controls. Okay, so here is the V-mount battery, and as we can see, this has almost a full charge. It has one line gone. So let's go ahead and attach this, and we are hilariously using the Godox at 1% power in full spot to show you this. Let's go ahead and clip that on, and we'll go ahead and, in the dark, try to find the connection there, and we'll turn that on. And let's go to, okay, and there's nothing on. Let's go to menu. We'll go up to CCT mode. There we go. And here we go. Here is 100% power. And as you can see, again, it's reading at 54 minutes, half battery. This is a 95 watt. So as you can see, this is going to drain the the V-mount battery very, very quickly. If you go down to about, let's go down to 50% here. And at 50%, you're going to get, like, it's saying 2 hours. So there you go. Let's go up to, let's say, 70% here. And at 70%, you're going to get about an hour and a half. So the V-mount battery, I think, is going to last a lot longer. Now, I did see something where I went up to 100 and left it at 100. And again, yep, there we go. Now we're at 51 minutes. So any kind of battery you're going to attach to this light is oddly going to lose to read out, and now it reads 49 minutes. So there's something with battery power in these lights that is just bizarre. As you see, it says 49 minutes. It's just draining the battery, and it doesn't give you a consistent readout of what the battery really is. It's very, very, very confusing. But the V-mount does work a lot better than the NPF, which we'll try next. Okay, so here is the Sony NPF, and as you can see, the batteries are already draining. And that is a huge con. If you don't take these off, your batteries are going to drain by these lights. So that is something to be aware of. Now let's go ahead and, whoop, luckily found that in the dark. Let's go ahead and turn this on. And let's go to 50% power here. Now these are the highest capacity batteries that you can find. And we're at 50% power. This is reading about 2 hours. If you give it a few seconds, you're gonna get a different reading. But right now it looks like 50%, you are getting about half power there. Now let's go to 100% and watch what happens at 100%. Give it a few seconds. And as you can see, you cannot run these on Sony NPF batteries at 100%. You are just going to lose power. So that is something to keep in mind. I think really 50%, at 50%, you're going to get half of what these batteries are. And that's about all you're going to get. So please skip the Sony NPFs unless you are in a dire need and you need something super low power. And I will tell you that this indicator readout, sometimes it reads properly, sometimes it doesn't. It's just weird. I just don't like it. It's just weird. Just very, very, very bizarre. And again, sometimes when I press this, it doesn't turn off. And there we go. We are at, there we go. There's 100%. We're on wall power. I highly, highly, highly recommend you using this attached to the wall. The V-mount works, the Sony NPFs don't work. So there you go. That is the Aputure. Okay, so here we are with the control box here. This is your typical control box. Now, let's go into menu, and again, you get your wireless control here. You get your channel, and of course, you go down to your grouping, which you get, and you get a lot of groups here. You can get, I believe it's A through F and then 0 through 9, which is cool. We'll just leave it on A. And let's go ahead and select A. And of course, you can go up to your channel, and I do believe you have 32 channels here. We'll leave this on 21. And then next you have your light ID here, and you have that through 99 channels. So you can have 99 of these, which is cool. And that is all for the Wi-Fi wireless 2.4G control. Now, if you go down here again, you get your Bluetooth setting, and you do get your ID here. And I believe press in the set button there. And I do believe, let's go ahead. And I think you only do get one Bluetooth set there. So there you go. And then clicking down one more time, you do get your DMX control, which is very cool. I do believe you get DMX control through 512. So pretty super awesome that this has DMX built in. Next, you have your special effects here. Let's go ahead and press the special effects button, and right now it's off. And now here's where it gets kind of bizarre, because your special effects, they're just numbered. I guess that's lightning, paparazzi, I guess 2 is some kind of maybe lightning. 3 is another kind of strobing. Not really sure what any of these are. They all seem to do sort of the same thing. But there's your, I guess that's faulty bulb. Let's go up, let's go hit effects again. Let's go to 5. Again, they all just sort of seem to do the same thing. So anyway, that's 1 through 8. I'm not going to blind you guys with that anymore. Let's go back to the main menu here. And in order to get out of the special effects, you do have to go to off. So that is something you will have to navigate to. Otherwise, when you turn this thing on and off again, it's just going to continue with the special effects. Now let's just for a brief moment talk about the connectors here. Now, the connectors are fantastic. What I love about these leads is that you are going to get, you can't mess these up. You can't put the wrong ones in because they are male and female, which is super awesome. And you get these fantastic clips here. And of course, on the bottom here, you do get an actual real Nutrex connector, which I really love. This thing just feels more premium, more solid, more professional. And again, we just line this up, slap it in. And this is my little workaround. This actually doesn't come with the light, and I'll show this to you at the end. But what I did was I went out and got one of these cheese plates with a D-tap, with a V-mount on it, with a male V-mount. And all I do is just slide this right into place, and it's not going anywhere. And of course, this is just a super clamp and the spigot that came with it. Very, very, very simple. I believe the this mounting bracket was only like 15 bucks or something like that. So super cheap option so that you can mount your control boxes. Okay, so here are both lights, and as you can see, the Aputure looks a little brighter and a little bit more color accurate. The Godox does spot a lot smaller and flood a lot larger, but the Aputure looks to be more color accurate. Now let's go ahead and spot out the Aputure here, and we'll spot out the Godox here. And as you can see, the Aputure does look like it's a little bit brighter. Here's the Godox. And here's the Aputure at full flood. Again, not as big, but brighter. And that's probably due to the fact that it isn't spotting as tightly or as widely as the Aputure. It just seems to have more kick to it. And let's go to full spot on the Aputure. In fact, I'll try to make the Aputure, try to make it about the same size as the Aputure here. And as you can see, the Aputure is definitely brighter. There's the Godox, and that's the Aputure, and that's the Godox. This is the Aputure. So all in all, the Aputure is brighter and more color accurate. Now let's get a noise reading here. So I'm getting noise reading of 80.9. Let's go ahead and shut this off. And these have been running for about 20 minutes. Let's get a noise reading here. And that's 34.2. So as you could hear, after running these for a while, the Aputure gets much louder than the Godox. And the Godox, you can actually turn off the fan. Granted, you will lose 50% power. You'll be cut down to 50% power. There's 50% power. And let's go ahead and spot this. I'll flood this so you can see the difference. Now 50% power is more than enough. Whereas the Aputure, what you see is what you get. Okay, so let's take a look at the cuts here. Now, as you can see, the Godox has an absolutely beautiful cut. No matter which way you shape it, it is pretty darn good. It is rock solid. So there is the cut of the Godox. I am really, really liking the way that this cuts. Even though it's not as bright, the cut is pretty solid. Now, let's go ahead and let's check out the way the Aputure cuts. So here is the Aputure cut, and as you can see, it's not as good. You do have a lot of double shadowing there, and let's try to get this as thin as possible. Again, trying to get this as thin as possible. You are definitely getting a lot of double shadowing. So I am very much so more inclined on the Godox. Also, one thing you'll notice, and I'll have to turn on the lights to show you, but this end is a little bit high. On the Godox, the side panels cover a little bit more. Now let's go ahead and let's pull out the side panels here and see if we can get a little less bleed, because we are getting a lot of light bleed here. And that does help some, but again, it's just not cutting as well as the Godox. It is brighter, but I just don't think that it's cutting as well. So that is something to keep in mind, that the Aputure does not cut as well as the Godox. Again, here is the Godox, and as you can see, this is absolutely brilliant. Let's go drop the iris in, and as you can see, that closes super small. Really works very, very, very well. So there's the iris function there. And now you always want to store your iris with the blades closed. You never want to, with the blades open. You never want to store it with the blades closed, because these can get bent. So you always want to make sure it's open. Okay, so here is the Gobo. And as you can see, this is super duper sharp. I really love how sharp this is and how well this looks. And again, you can kind of draw the whole thing backwards and forwards here. Let's go ahead and lock that in, and we'll pull that in, try to make this as super sharp as we can. There we go, there we go. So super sharp, and let's check for chromatic aberration. And as you can see, really there's no chromatic aberration whatsoever. Everything looks really sharp, nothing is bowing or bending. Maybe a little when you get out to about there's a little bit of purple fringing, but really none at all, and everything looks straight. Nothing looks like it's bending. So this works very well as well. So yeah, really love the way the Gobos look on the 60. Okay, so here we are with the flags, and as you can see, it cuts beautifully. I only have 2 flags in. You can put all 4 in, but in my opinion, it just gets too confusing. It just gets too hard to manipulate all 4. Not all 4 don't really fit in my opinion. You can fit them in, but I don't really care for it. Also, I noticed that there is some, with the flags, there's a little bit of etching here that didn't come off, flashing that didn't come off when they printed these or when they molded these. So you are getting a little bit of like flashing on the edges. So it's not, it's a little bit jagged. It's not as smooth as it should be. So possibly look into the dado flags because you are getting a little bit of, as you can see, jagged edge there. But these cut fine. You can do fun stuff like this. Have a little sunrise. These flags are just okay, but I do think that they are a little rough on the edges here. Okay, pros and cons time. Now, let's talk about the cons of the Godox. Yes, you could hear the fan. If you had 3 of these in the room, I would be a little worried, especially if they were around your sound guy, but you can easily turn off the fan, and that cuts it down to 50% power, which in my opinion is still enough to do what you need to do. There's no locking pin. You will need this special tool. Now, I have the S30. I have yet to really touch this thing, yet to really have to use this thing. I really love the fact that you could just do that. That works for me. So far, so good. Now, there's no case. I really wish that Godox would start shipping with cases. I understand why they don't, and you can purchase cases specifically for this light for a very inexpensive price. And of course, no extras, just the 2 wires, the control box, this, and the barn doors. Now, one thing that drives me crazy are these things. I am not a fan. However, I did come up with a workaround. I got this little cheese plate, quarter 20 here. Let's see if the camera will focus on it. Try to get the camera to focus on it. It won't. But I'll leave a link down in the description. All you have to do is do that, attach it to a spigot, to a super clamp, slap this on, and you're good to go. The special effects in this thing are not very good. Not only are they just numbered, but they're not great. Again, I'm not buying this for special effects. And this tends to be a little bit greener and not as bright as the Aputure. So that is something to keep in mind. Now let's talk about the cons of the Aputure here, and there are many. Now first off, I am not a fan of this V-mount system. It just makes the whole thing bulky and heavy. A light that's already heavy, even heavier. Now, if you're using this in the studio, I can definitely see why they did this. This is great for a YouTube studio, but running and gunning, that drives me crazy. The leads are very, 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 very short. I'm also not a fan of the way that this clips together. I have to look for this very teeny tiny triangle, which is black, and I can barely see it, especially if it's dark. And then I have to kind of twist this and pull this apart. And this little cap thing turns a lot. Not my favorite thing in the world. And again, even the cord is short. Even though it's got that safety lock, which I like, it's a really short cord. The leads are just very, very short. Now, let's talk about the barn doors. First of all, no clips on the barn doors. These are very, very, very loose. And they just do not cut as well as the Godox. The Godox barn doors cut so much better because if you look at the Godox barn doors, they close in an actual box. If you look at the Aputures, you can see all of that, they're just too high and at too much of an angle, and so light leaks, and it just doesn't cut well. Also, it's got this weird, it's got screws here to kind of stop this, which is kind of weird. I guess, okay, fine. Not my favorite thing in the world. Now let's also continue here and let's talk about this little lock here. I never know whether this little tab is supposed to go forward or backwards. To move it, it seems like backwards would move it, but nope, forwards. Not my favorite thing. Kind of drove me crazy. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is this awful Sony NPF battery adapter. I really wish Aputure would stop with the NPF batteries. They don't work on the P60C, and they do not work here. The best you're going to get on two of the highest capacity batteries is you're going to get 50% on two batteries and about 30 minutes, about half capacity on the batteries at half power. So I really wish they would stop trying to include this and stop trying to tell us that their new lights run off Sony NPFs when they really don't work. I would have rather had a longer extension cord added in or another barn doors that cuts better, but preferably an extra extension cord. This, in my opinion, is a huge skip. Because it just doesn't work very well. Like, I get it, if you're in a pinch or you just want to use 50% power and you want to shoot something quickly, fine. But the minute you go above 50% power or even 40% power, this thing's kind of useless. Moving on with the cons, like I said, this is very awkward and heavy. I know some wedding photographers who use these and love these. I wouldn't want to throw that in my bag, and I wouldn't want to carry a projector mount with me because, again, that's carrying two bags instead of just throwing all of this in one bag very, very, very simply. The knobs back here feel more Amaran than Aputure. They are clicky, they're fine, they work, but they just feel more consumer, prosumer than professional. Also, I don't like the fact that this lead just kind of hangs out here. You can't detach this. So what it does is it stops it from being 360, which is unfortunate. And the menu system is a bit confusing. I never knew, especially in the dark, which button to press to select which. So that is a little bit confusing as well. And finally, let's talk about the projection mount. It is $500. This light is over $400. That's $500 plus tax. This makes this light almost a $1,000 light. Now, when you compare it to the affordability of the Godox, that's a huge difference. You can get this light on sale right now at the time of the recording of this video for $287 and some change. So all in, this thing would be about $500-600. So huge difference. And again, yes, the Aputure projector comes with everything you need. It's 15 to 35 degrees, something like that. But again, it's a big thing to put in another case to carry with you around the day. So we didn't even test it. Hopefully, maybe one of these days I'll get my hands on both and we can test it. But right now, it's just not cost prohibitive. And this does not spot as small and does not go as wide as the Godox. And let's talk fan noise. Now, everybody is saying that this fan is not loud. Well, run this thing for 20 minutes and you'll hear it's just as loud as the Aputure 200X. This thing ramps up and there is no fan control on this thing. So after a while, you are going to hear this ramping up. I really wish they gave us some kind of fan control. Maybe in a firmware update we'll get that. But that is kind of an annoyance. Now let's talk about the pros of the Godox, and that is these wires. These leads are rock solid. They look professional. They're thick. You get an actual Nutrex connector. The control box, you can have it down on the ground and that way up, and you can control your light. The only thing you can't control is the spot flood. And again, it does have a V-mount battery down here, which is super awesome. Let's talk about the barn doors. They cut beautifully. It just cuts solid. You get the diffusion clips. It's sleeker and easier to carry around. It has DMX. It has app control. The projector mount is amazing. Now, I own the S30, and the fact that this is universal, again, I know I sound like a broken record, fantastic, and the fact that this is so much cheaper than getting the Aputure projector mount, and it's so much smaller, so much more travelable, really, really fantastic. And of course, this spots smaller and floods wider. And again, the price difference is a huge factor. Now let's talk about the pros of the Aputure. You're getting the Aputure name. You're getting the superior color. You are getting everything that Aputure promises. Sidus links, better special effects, a quieter fan, curve control if you care about curve control. You get that studio mode, so when you flip on the light, it goes on, great for hanging in a studio. You get a case. You get the power brick, which attaches to the mount. It comes with a D-tap cable, so you can just slap on a V-mount battery and go. You get this fantastic Bowens mount adapter for all your smaller soft boxes and dishes. That's huge. And of course, then you get this NPF attachment. Again, you know how I feel about this. And this is more color accurate and brighter. So where do I stand at the end of the day? Which one of these will I buy? Which will become part of my kit? And it really depends on three factors: price, the way the barn doors cut, and projection. And for that, I am going with the Godox S60. That's right. At the end of the day, this is easier to throw in a bag and carry with me. This is bulky, this is big, it's got a lot of pieces, and really it boils down to the barn doors, how they cut. These cut better than those. How the projection mount works. The projection mount, way more inexpensive and works beautifully, and the price. So at the end of the day, I really like the Godox. Again, I love the fact that I have longer leads. This feels more like a professional device. This feels more like a consumer device. I understand. There are wedding photographers who love to take this to weddings and just flood the room or run a spot on the bride and groom. That's great, but at the end of the day, for my needs, this is what I'm gonna go with. It's a tool, like the S30, it is a virtual toolbox, and it just does everything very, very, very well. The Aputure does need some work, in my opinion. So those are my thoughts, but I want to know yours. So leave your questions and comments in the notes below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to mash that bell button to be notified when we drop a brand new video. And feel free to use the links below, as it helps out the channel. I'm Stephen Michael Zach, and these are new to me.